Welcome to the applicant orientation for the personnel development to improve services and results for children with disabilities, doctoral training consortia associated with high intensity needs, funded by the Office of Special Education Programs in the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services at the U.S. Department of Education. I am Celia Rosenquist, a project officer at OSEP, and the contact person if you have questions related to this competition. The assistance listing number for this competition is 84325H. Next. I would like to go over some notes before we begin this webinar. First, the intent of this webinar is to provide guidance only, and the information contained in this webinar provides a general summary of the information contained in the notice inviting applications and the application package. Therefore, it is important that all prospective applicants read the entire notice, application package, and any other relevant information. In addition, applicants are encouraged to listen to the webinar entitled Applying for Office of Special Education Programs Discretionary Grants for an Orientation to the Overall Application Process. That webinar can be found at osepidealsthatwork.org, the same location that houses the link to this recording. Next. The notice inviting applications for 84325H was published in the Federal Register on January 3rd, 2024. Applications are due no later than 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, March 4th, 2024. Note that this is Eastern Time Zone, and applicants should determine what time would be in your time zone accordingly to meet this deadline. We will discuss the implications of a late submission later in the webinar. Next. The application package available in grants.gov contains the most comprehensive information on how to apply. In it, you will find a Dear Applicant letter and the notice inviting applications, which both have important information about the grants.gov system submission procedures. The package also contains the detailed selection criteria that will be used to judge the quality of the applications, as well as general information and all required forms. So please read the information package carefully. Next. In this next section, I will go over the purpose of the Personnel Development Program and 325H priority, eligible applicants, number of anticipated awards, funding levels, and project period. Next. The purpose of the Personnel Development to Improve Services and Results for Children with Disabilities program are to, 1, help address state-identified needs for personnel preparation and special education, early intervention related services, and regular education to work with children, including infants and toddlers with disabilities. And 2, to ensure that those personnel have the necessary skills and knowledge derived from practices that have been determined through scientifically based research and experience to be successful in serving those children. There is $3.9 million currently budgeted for this specific program in 2024. Next slide. U.S. Department of Education priorities include a commitment to promoting equity for children with disabilities with high intensity needs to access educational resources and opportunities, and a high priority on increasing the number of leadership personnel, including increasing the number of multilingual leadership personnel and leadership personnel from racially and ethnically diverse backgrounds who provide or prepare others to provide services to children with disabilities with high intensity needs. Next slide. This priority supports the preparation and increasing the number of highly skilled doctoral leaders, including increasing the number of multilingual leadership personnel and leadership personnel from racially and ethnically diverse backgrounds who provide or prepare others to provide services to children with disabilities with high intensity needs by funding 3 doctoral training consortia to prepare and increase the number of personnel who are well qualified for and can act effectively in leadership positions as researchers and special education early intervention related services, personnel preparers in institutes of higher education, or as leaders in state educational agencies, lead agencies under Part C of IDEA, local educational agencies, early intervention services programs, or schools. Next slide. Some consortium requirements include each doctoral training consortia must support preparation programs that culminate in a doctoral degree, a PhD, or an EDD. Each IHE in the consortium must enroll and support scholars as part of the consortium. Each doctoral training consortia must include at least 6 IHEs with doctoral programs in the project that will prepare scholars. 1 or more IHEs with doctoral programs in the project that will prepare scholars that meet the definition of a minority serving institution. And for institutes of higher ed that meet the definition of a minority serving institution, that a link is provided in the notice to where you can find that information. At least 1 IHE with the doctoral program in the project that will prepare scholars for leadership positions should not have received funding under assistance listing number 84325D or assistance listing number of 84325H at any point in the preceding 5 fiscal years. Next slide. Eligible applicants include IHEs and private nonprofit organizations that have legal authority to enter into grants and cooperative agreements with the federal government on behalf of an IHE. OSEP may make up to 3 awards under this competition. OSEP will not make an award exceeding $6,500,000 per project for a project period of 60 months, or an award that exceeds $1,950,000 for any single budget period. Applicants must describe in their applications the amount of funding being requested for each 12-month budget period. And project periods, as already noted, can be up to 60 months. Next slide. In this section, I'll go over the application information, including the application narrative and selection criteria, project assurances, and requirements. Once again, this webinar provides a general summary of the information contained in the notice and the application package. So please make sure to read the entire notice, application package, and any additional relevant information if you intend on applying. Next slide. There are 5 selection criteria, which I will be going over in the next set of slides. Next. For significance of the project, you can receive up to 10 points for that section. And in your application, you should address under significance how the project you are proposing will increase the number of leadership personnel in the project's focus area who will improve outcomes for children with disabilities with high intensity needs. Should also address the doctoral programs participating in the proposed consortium have been successful in producing leadership personnel that address the needs of children with high intensity needs. You should include data related to the success of each consortium doctoral program and graduates addressing the needs of children with high intensity needs. Under significance, you should address how the competencies each scholar acquires, the competencies each scholar will acquire by participating in the consortium and by completing the university's program of study, and how that relates to the knowledge and skills needed by leadership personnel that the applicant proposes to prepare and who will improve outcomes for children with disabilities with high intensity needs. Next slide. Under quality of project services, applicants can receive up to 45 points. And applicants should address how scholars will be recruited and retained. Applicants should describe the selection criteria that will be used to identify doctoral applicants for admission. Describe the recruitment strategies to ensure a diverse pool of applicants. And related to recruitment and selection, please refer to the note in the priority. This note indicates that applicants should engage in focused outreach and recruitment to increase the number of applicants from groups that are traditionally underrepresented in the field, including applicants with disabilities, multilingual applicants, and applicants from racial and ethnic diverse backgrounds. But the selection criteria the applicant intends to use, and which also should be described, must ensure equal access and treatment of all applicants seeking admission to the program and must be consistent with applicable law, including federal civil rights law. Applicants should also describe how scholars will be mentored and supported. Next slide. Under quality of project services, applicants must also address how the project is designed to promote the acquisition of the competencies needed by leadership personnel in the project's proposed preparation focus area. So applicants should describe the proposed project components such as coursework, research, internship experiences, and the sequence of those components. The proposed project components of the consortium curriculum are how the proposed consortium curriculum are integrated within and across the individual university program curricula to promote the acquisition of scholar competencies. The proposed project components of the consortium that will enhance scholars' preparation to provide or prepare others. How the proposed project will engage partners to inform project components. How the proposed project components will promote the acquisition of scholars' knowledge of strategies and approaches to attracting, preparing, and retaining future personnel. And the opportunities scholars will have to work with faculty and scholars from other universities within the consortium to support the acquisition of competencies. Next slide. Quality of project personnel and applicants can receive up to 20 points. Under quality of project personnel and management plan, applicants must address the qualifications of the project director and key personnel, how personnel will manage the project, and the time commitments of the project director and key personnel. Next slide. Adequacy of resources, applicants can receive up to 10 points. And under the quality of the adequacy of resources, applicants must address how information of accommodations and resources available to fully support scholars' well-being and a work-life balance will be disseminated, and how the project will support scholars to access those if needed. The types of accommodations and resources provided to support scholars individualized based on scholars' cultural, academic, and social emotional needs with the goal of supporting them to complete the program. And whether the budget's adequate for meeting the project objectives and mitigating financial burden to scholars. Please note that scholar support does not need to be uniform for all scholars and can be customized for individual scholars based on scholars' financial needs. Next, Quality of project evaluation, applicants can receive up to 15 points. Under quality of evaluation, applicants should evaluate how well the goals or objectives of the proposed project have been met. The applicants must describe the outcomes to be measured for both the project and the scholars, particularly the acquisition of scholars' competencies, and how data on scholars will be collected, analyzed, and used to inform the project on an ongoing basis. Should address how project outcomes will be disseminated, address that there are sufficient resources that will be dedicated toward evaluation, and how the project will contribute to the evaluation and dissemination of the consortium model by collaborating with the other consortia. Next slide. In addition to the selection criteria, there are a number of project assurances the applicant must provide. So there are multiple assurances related to scholars, including how the project will meet the requirements in the regulations, particularly those related to informing all scholars of their service obligation commitment and dispersing scholarships. Assurance that the project will meet the statutory requirements in section 662E through H of IDEA, and a link is provided on the slides. An assurance the project will operate consistent with the requirements contained in the U.S. Constitution and federal civil rights laws, and ensure that scholar support costs are scholarship assistance and not financial assistance based on the condition that the scholar works. Next slide. There are assurances also related to establishing policies, procedures, standards, and guidelines for the work of the consortium in multiple areas, including the recruitment and selection of scholars, the distribution of tuition and stipends among participating scholars, fiscal management, measurement and reporting of scholar progress, contingency planning in case a scholar or one of the consortium faculty leave, governance of the consortium, and a sustainability plan. Next slide. There are also multiple assurances related to activities and reporting, including participation in cross-collaboration, advanced trainings, and cross-site learning opportunities. Assurance about ensuring an accessible website. Reporting scholar accomplishments, including publications, award, and public service that should be included in the annual and final performance reports. And an assurance that annually the project will provide any required data on scholars. Next slide. There are multiple requirements related to the budget, including budgeting for attendance by the project director at the annual 3-day project directors meeting in Washington, D.C., budgeting for 2 in-person meetings for project scholars and faculty each year of the project. The budget should also include at least 65% of the total budget should be used for scholar support. And scholar support can vary each year of the project, but must be at least 65% of the total award. Next slide. So some additional information related to scholar support is provided in the notice, but specifically, scholar budget considerations include mitigating financial burden based on scholar need. Additional information has been provided in the notice on what can be considered as scholar support, which includes costs related to attendance, such as tuition and stipends, but also personal expenses, as well as travel related to training. And as you develop your budget projections, especially those related to scholar support, each participating IHE in the consortium should consider program attendance costs for scholars over the project period. For example, are scholar support costs going to be the same as in the first year, midway through the program, and final year? Take into account these cost differences in your budget and your projections. Consider as well if there may be planned tuition increases as well as cost of living increases. Next slide. Lastly, all OSEP funded projects must indicate that they will make positive efforts to employ and advance in employment qualified individuals with disabilities, that the project will involve individuals with disabilities or parents in planning, implementing, and evaluating the project, and the steps the project will take to ensure equitable access to and participation in its services by program beneficiaries with special needs. Next slide. In this next section, I will discuss submission information. Next slide. Please note that applications must be submitted electronically in the grants.gov system. If there are reasons why an applicant cannot submit using grants.gov, the applicant must follow the information provided in the application package. Applications cannot be submitted by email, and applications must be submitted prior to the deadline of 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on March 4th, 2024. We strongly encourage applicants to submit all narratives and attachments in PDF, read-only, non-modifiable format. Next slide. In order to make sure the application is submitted on time and correctly, please register as early as possible in grants.gov and start the application process early. Do not wait until you have the application ready to register. Grants.gov will create a workspace for applicants to submit the pieces of the application over time. And if you are already registered in the system for award management, make sure your registration is current. We recommend submitting early, a day or two more in advance if possible. Should there be any problems with the grants.gov system, submitting early will allow you time to correct the problem and resubmit before the deadline. Also, verify that the submission is okay. Grants.gov will send applicants notifications that the submission was timed, that the submission was entered into the system and that it was validated. So applicants should make sure that they receive the confirmation and not assume that the submission was okay. If an office will be submitting on your behalf, we recommend asking that office to submit that verification, those verification emails to you, so you can ensure that the application was submitted on time and without errors. Next slide. Here are some additional tips for submitting an application. Pay attention to the maximum funding levels for the grant as contained in the notice. Awards will not be made for amounts higher than the published amounts. Follow the recommended organization, page limits, spacing, and font sizes to facilitate the application review process. And applicants should strongly consider following those recommendations in regards to organization. PDF files make it easier for the system to put together different parts of the application into one application that reviewers can more easily read and follow. The grants.gov submission procedures and tips for applicants section found in section B of the application package can be extremely helpful for submitting the application in grants.gov. Next slide. There are 3 reasons why an application may not be eligible. First, if an application is submitted more than once and validated more than once, the last application submitted will be considered, and previous applications will be considered duplicates and therefore ineligible and not reviewed. Second, all applications received after the published deadline will not be eligible for funding. And third, applications that do not address the priority will also not be eligible for funding. For example, an application proposing to build a school or establish an after-school program or provide tutoring services for children with disabilities would not be eligible, since this is not the purpose of the 325H priority. Next. As I mentioned in the beginning, this webinar covers highlights of what's contained in the application package and priority. If you are submitting an application, please once again make sure to read the entire notice, the application package, and any additional relevant information. If you have additional questions, please contact me by email at celia.rosenquist@ed.gov. And you can also contact me by phone at 202-245-7373. Thank you.